before this video starts and we get into this shit show of a fucking topic, just wanted to let you know that this is probably one of, if not the biggest topics that I discuss on a regular basis in regards to politics, that I change my opinions on quite frequently. With age comes wisdom, with wisdom comes a changing of opinions, and quite frankly, that's just the way that it works. But I will let you know that whenever it comes to this topic, and whenever I do research on this topic, it always leads me down the same road where I literally want to fucking kill myself. And I'm using the word literally, not the way that it's intended, I'm joking. But the topic gets pretty dark and starts delving into the more evil sides of humanity and our self-serving nature and our propensity to commit violence upon others for our own selfish ends. So with that said, let's jump on into this video because it's going to be fucking good.
Want to divide a group of people faster than Moses parted the Red Sea? Do you want to create a divide in a room so deep you could see it from outer space? Bring up abortion. No, seriously, this topic is a divisive one and ends friendships much like a late night a game of Mario Kart. But why is this specific topic this way? I mean, it exists within a political sphere and spectrum of colossal idiots of extremes, yet this one seems to be one of the very few that actually push a very consistent tipping scale. A fat kid that hops on the teeter-totter, so to speak. Well, I'm just joshing. That's a topic for another time. Instead, we're going to shorten this video by narrowing the whole scope down to the moral efficacy of a very recent bill that I'm more than certain most, if not all of you, have heard of. I am, of course, talking about the abortion bill signed into law by the Alabama Governor, Kay Ivey. Now, she actually signed it recently. And before I go on, I have to point out to all the mouth-breathing feminists chomping at the bit to blame the old white men and that trope that exists. She is, in fact, a woman. But, with that said, this video isn't going to be a rant on the hypocritical nature of collectivist turbotards. Instead, we're going to take a drive, a detour, if you will, into the territory of philosophical and moral interpretation and personal property rights and individual rights and inherent rights. It's an extravaganza, if you will. We'll call it a safari. But here is the major point of contention in this debate and I really hate the dichotomy here and the bipartisanship of it, but the pro-choicers, as they are so called, which in this case, the pro-choicers have a fair criticism. In the case of rape, this situation, specifically the pregnancy, was forced upon the woman without her consent, and women can go quite some time without showing signs or being aware of themselves being pregnant. And the same could be said in the case of incest. Also, incest is messy business, what with birth defects and everything else. But essentially, since this individual had that forced upon them, it's not a matter of choice. It was a matter of somebody's rights, inherent rights as an individual being violated by somebody else, which is a dark road to go down in of itself. But we're not taking that detour. We're continuing down the road. All right, we saw that dirt road we passed. We're going to keep going. Now, it should be noted that since Roe v. Wade is a federal precedent being ruled on by the Supreme Court of the United States, technically, the Alabama bill could be contested and probably beaten, essentially, as if it were taken to the federal level, because federal law trumps state law, as we all know. But anyway, the bill claims to, and I quote, protect the rights of the unborn child. Now, you could argue that a fetus is simply a hump of cells, a clump of cells, a parasite, if you will. But that would be inaccurate, as a child is viable outside of the womb at 24 weeks, albeit with medical attention. But bear in mind, in this bill they state that, and I quote, recent medical advances prove a baby's heart starts to beat at around 6 weeks, as we can observe. This is accurate, as I've seen, as I've researched. Although it should be noted that at this point the baby's back is closing and the brain and spinal cord begin developing. But the embryo is still just that, an embryo, which, as you can see here by this definition, is an interesting point of contention. I'm going to skip ahead in the bill, though, because they pull some heartstring tugs on the backs of former genocides and God knows how many people who stand on their graves to push political ends. And also I'm not a big fan of hypocrites. But moving forward to section 3, and this is where I'm going to insert some of my own views here. Take a note of this, more specifically the wording. Quote, the use or prescription of any instrument, medicine, drug, or any other substance or device with the intent to terminate the pregnancy of a woman known to be pregnant. So that means that one could argue the use of the day after pill or the abuse of alcohol or drugs with the intent to terminate a pregnancy is illegal under this bill. Now, you could simply assume I'm being paranoid, which you're not exactly wrong, but would you really put it past some people to take advantage of ambiguous wording? I mean, it's happened in the past. Why wouldn't it happen now? People are still people. Humans are still humans. We're still capable of and do terrible fucking things to each other. But I'm just going to leave that where it is. But anyway, this next snippet from the bill supplements my concerns with its wording. And I quote, an unborn child in utero at any stage of development. So I guess that means that the morning pill, after pill is entirely out the door. I mean, before it could simply be ambiguous, maybe. But no, it's completely out the door at this point. And of course, there's no way that could be taken advantage of at all. But really, this is why people should read legislation that politicians agree on and vote on and put forward. But moving on. And once again, skipping ahead to section 6 of this dumpster fire, there is this. Oh, for the love of God. These are felonies. These are felonies placed upon the physician, completely dissolving the woman of agency. I don't even know I'm just going to leave that one alone for now. It's also kind of besides the point. If this is a felony, presuming they're going to lump it in with an act of murder, essentially saying that this is a felony because this is an act of murder, you're ending the life of another individual. Whether or not this be first, second, or third degree, I'm assuming they're going to try for first, considering it's premeditated, but that hasn't been specified. But basically, they're going to throw physicians in jail for doing this. Now, you may agree it's murder. It's your opinion. But keep in mind, these people have medical degrees, are doing medical procedures, have medical training, are doctors, essentially, kind of, not saying that they should get special treatment, but you got to understand the landscape you're dealing with here. And you're going to throw them in prison to live off of the taxpayers' dime. Makes a whole lot of sense, doesn't it? But moving on. This topic is nuanced beyond the simply pro-life, pro-choice groups that the left and right would have you believe and would have you bow down to and accept their dichotomy as fact, when it's actually a hell of a lot more nuanced than that. It's okay. Let's assume you believe it's murder. Okay, murder implies this is another human being. At what point do you consider an embryo a human being? Clearly, those who wrote this bill believe it's right from conception. But this is an amalgamation of cells. It's an embryo. It has 46 chromosomes. Humans have 23. By biological standards, it's essentially not a human being. The question of when an embryo becomes a fetus is when the embryo becomes a fetus is not a question. That's actually the stated fact. But when that fetus becomes considered protected under what we would consider inherent rights is where the debate diverges from the road of the dichotomy, separates itself from the bipartisanship, and becomes more of an issue of morality and personal perspective. It goes down a side street called nuance, we'll say. Now, here's where I will start just discussing my viewpoints. Now, keep in mind, these are my personal opinions. I have based some of these opinions off of fact. I have based the aspects of this opinion on my views as far as inherent and personal rights. But I just wanted to add that in, just so people are aware of this. I am well aware that this is an opinion. But while I find abortion outside of rape and incest immoral, I don't think the state getting involved in outright banning it is wise. But more specifically, I support the 24-week sentiment. The idea that 24 weeks it's viable outside of the womb, it gets inherent rights. Unless issues arise that would put the mother at a health risk. But let me explain my views more specifically. Just as barren as it possibly could be, stripped down to the bone. Before you type angrily in the comments. 24 weeks is the general rule of thumb for when a fetus can live outside of the womb and be viable without the sustenance provided by the mother, and in my eyes is capable of the cognitive ability and functions we attribute to everyday life and humans as a species. I'm not saying that that 24-week-old is equivalent to an adult. Obviously, they don't have the wisdom. They're not capable of abstract thought even at that point, as far as we are aware. But they have the capability to do so on their own, quote unquote, by living outside, by being able to live outside of the womb. By that I mean, before this point, the fetus requires the subsistence of a host, being the mother, to survive, and therefore is incapable of living outside of that situation. In a sense, at 24 weeks, I consider the fetus capable of human life. They are endowed with the inherent rights of every other human being, one of those being life. Now, you may disagree, and that's fine. I'm just stating opinion at this point. I suggest you read the bill in its entirety, and you can find it added in its entirety at a link I'll note in the description. Now, another thing I shouldn't profess, just for the sake of clarity and translucence, call it intellectual honesty if you wish to. Sperm can survive in the womb for up to 5 days, so there's quite a window for ambiguity there in of itself. And ambiguity in law is never a good thing. You should never open the door for the state or another individual to impeach upon your rights based solely upon somebody tugging at your fucking heartstrings. Because ambiguity in laws allows those in power to abuse those that are below them outside of their standard deviations of simply imposing certain laws upon you based solely upon the moral ambiguity we stand for as human beings. So, with that said, as a closing statement, you may have noticed this is going to be released within a week or so of my last upload. I have hopefully been able to make it back to making videos regularly. I'm not going to commit to a schedule until I can actually be sure that I'm going to be able to maintain that schedule. At this point, my living situation is still flipping, if you will. So, until I can 100% profess I'll be doing it weekly, just assume if I don't upload for a few weeks that I'm having personal issues, if you will. But anyway, with that said, have a wonderful morning, afternoon, evening, and or night, and I will see you cunts in the next one.